Welcome everyone. This is our weekly live Q&A where you can ask any of your health and fitness questions here. We'll get to them as we see them in the chat. If you're watching on the replay, you always feel free to throw your questions in the comments. We'll get to them next week's live session. We do have an earlier question submitted that I'm going to start with. Let me get it posted here in the chat. So I'll post it and start reading. I know there's a slight delay. Here's another question. Recently heard someone say online that working out to failure each set actually builds muscle better than doing more reps with other strategies, such as less reps, not to failure, more sets. What do you think about this? Do you agree? So there's a couple different aspects here. First and foremost, and this goes for really any sort of what type of program should I do question. The most important part is, what are your training goals? What are you trying to accomplish with your workouts? Are we truly trying to build more muscle mass? Are we more focused on strength and maybe a little bit of conditioning? In different elements of that. And obviously there's spectrums with each of those. But there are different types of training that are more focused on strength. There are trainings that are focused more on conditioning, and then kind of that mid ground gets us more into muscle building, and there's definitely techniques there. So the first aspect is, yes, in order to maximize muscle growth potential, you have to hit muscle failure on a frequent basis during your training session. The reason for this is because if you're not, what you're really training and optimizing is more neuromuscular coordination rather than muscle cell recruitment. And what I mean by that is a lot of the first phases of improving strength and adaptation to a training program isn't truly building muscle. You get stronger because your body gets more effective and more coordinated at recruiting the proper muscles required for the output. So for any of you who have kind of started really fresh and done unfamiliar exercises and kind of wonder why so many different muscles feel like they're kind of twitching, spasming, it's your body's triggering different contractions to figure out which contractions provide the ideal movement that we're trying to accomplish. So as it narrows that down, that means we're recruiting less and less of the muscle each time we do the movement. The only way to supersede that is we have to go to failure. So what happens is once you've got enough coordination, your body's going to recruit as few muscle cells as needed to accomplish the movement. So if we're not going to failure, that means some of your muscle cells didn't get involved. And if you do too long of a rest, the muscle cells that were just recruited are refreshed, and it's going to be those muscle cells again. And that'll repeat if you're still not going to failure and you're giving too long of a rest period in between. So the failure aspect, it means that we're hitting to the point where in that muscle group, let's say, for example, like a push-up or another type of chest exercise, if you hit that failure point, it means like there's no more muscle contractions in the entire chest group to accomplish that push-up. Same thing with like a curl, a pull, any of those types of things. Now, in aspects of what does failure mean, there's a couple different perspectives and meanings in there that still get us pretty close. One of the challenges of training to failure is the hazards involved. If you're not overly familiar with the movement, your likelihood for injury is extremely high. That's the reason why with a lot of novices, we don't typically train to failure, because we're still trying to make sure you know how to do and control the movement. Once that's done, then we can start talking about, okay, let's increase the mode of your training to maximize muscle growth. So safety is an aspect. familiarity with the movement so you know how to safely and properly get out of it, and or having a educated spotter to properly help you either complete the movement or get you out of danger when you hit that failure point. So it depends on the exercise. There's different aspects. Either the spotter is there to help you complete it, or the spotter is there to help make sure that you're able to get out from under the weight, or to get the weights out from over you in a safe manner to minimize anyone's injury potential, both you, the spotter, and then anyone else in the surrounding gym area. So that's usually the main limiting factor for people who are trying to get maximum muscle growth because of a lot of the hazards and limitations involved. Another aspect to training to failure is what we call reps in reserve, or RIR. Um, what that means is you're not necessarily hitting failure, but you want to be getting to a point where like you've only got, you know, 2 to 3 reps left in that tank to to keep going. If you can get close to that point, you're going to be towing that line for maximum muscle growth optimization that way without being in major risk of harm by hitting complete failure and no longer being able to control the movement or the weight itself or your body. Um, so that's kind of a aspect and technique to be aware of when you're trying to work with that, so you can still get pretty close to the full optimization of muscle recruitment without putting yourself at complete risk. If you're not training for, how do I want to put this? If trying to see how massive your muscles is not your goal, meaning like if maybe I do want to build some muscle mass, but you know, fat burning and weight loss is actually my bigger concern, then we may not be training to complete failure. What we're going to train more is on kind of a heart rate focus, where we're going to use your muscles rather than doing overly repetitive movements like traditional cardio. We're going to move load, but we're going to do some sort of either superset or circuit routine to keep a more maximal heart rate achieved throughout, to get more conditioning and training that way. We'll still have muscle recruitment that will still stimulate some muscle building. You'll get stronger just from the neural adaptations that we discussed at the beginning, but we're keeping your heart rate higher to get more of the cardiovascular benefits. You're able to move more load volume in a shorter amount of time. So we still get a lot of the caloric expenditure and muscle recruitment aspects that give us the good metabolic boosts that we associate with doing resistance training over just cardio. Resistance training usually gets us a better afterburn effect. Building muscle does elevate our resting metabolic rate more so than doing just cardio. All forms of training are important. The key thing is getting a good balance based upon your goals, your current needs and abilities. This is one of the reasons why having professional assistance when you're pursuing major body changes is so important, because you could be doing what is by definition a great program, but it may not be a great program for your goals or your body's current physical needs. For example, if you're a complete novice, going out and getting a pro bodybuilder's workout book guide may not be the best first step for you, because we haven't prepped your body to even know how to handle most of the movements that they have in their program properly. And we need to get you started with a different program first to build up to be able to handle that level of training. So that's the reason why I always, when someone asks me something like that about what's the best way to train, you know, what are your goals is a very key question. Behind that, next is, you know, what is your body currently capable of? Have you ever trained before? Are we looking at any injuries? What do you do for work? Is that causing any muscle imbalances or repetitive movement pattern syndromes, where Now one muscle is overtrained and other muscles are undertrained, creating major postural deviations. These are all aspects that go into developing a good customized program for someone. That's one of the reasons why, for any inquiries, we do offer a complimentary welcome session so we can first and foremost get to know what your goals are, what your motivations behind those goals are. So we really know, okay, what do we need to accomplish with your training program? And then we do movement assessments to identify what is your body currently capable of, and are there any major muscle imbalances or postural deviations that need to be taken into consideration of your greater training plan. Because if those are in existence, you could do what is inherently a great program, but you could put yourself at a high risk of injury because that program isn't built for someone with either the muscle imbalances you have, the postural deviations you have, maybe a prior injury occurrence that you've had. So getting that professional insight input, it can be very vital, not just in aspects of not wasting your time on a program that wasn't meant for you now, but also from preventing lost training time in the future by preventing any injuries or issues that would cause you not to be able to train for a period of time. I can tell you from personal experience, I've shared a lot of times with the chronic um, degenerative disc issues that I've had that have derailed my training for long periods of time. And it sucks because now you're not building on where you left off at. You're having to rebuild a lot of what's lost during that lost training time. No one enjoys that, especially when you've made great progress already. That can be very demotivating and oftentimes hard to return and get back into it, um, if it wasn't something that was easy to get going with in the first place. So injury prevention is always a big aspect of our overall training design for clients. In addition to, based upon your goals, your body's current needs, what program is going to be best for you right now. Um, and that's very important. I know a lot of different programs, places, you're just kind of a plug and chug. If you're working on this goal, this is your workout, or these are the classes you go to. And if you're X goal, you go to these classes or this workout, but they're not customizing it on your true current needs and your true current abilities, in addition to what is your goal. So all of those are important to consider. Um, with as far as rep ranges to failure, if you're trying to work on muscle building, anything between really 5 to 35, if you're hitting that either complete failure or close to, just the 2 or 3 reps in reserve range, you're going to stimulate the muscle building stimulus that we're looking for. Now there's caveats within there as far as how much time do you have, um, how much strength do you have, in other capabilities, because sometimes, saying yes, you can build muscle doing repetitions of 30 for your sets, not everyone has the time to do that. um, Other aspects, as far as sometimes the mental fortitude to train to failure for reps of 20 plus, suck a lot. I can tell you that from personal experience. A lot more than just training to sets of 10 to failure or 8 to failure or even 15 to failure. Um, it is a much different mind game when you've hit 15, your muscles are on fire, but you can still technically keep going and having to push through that until finally you hit true failure. So that's one of the challenges of trying that rep and reserve aspect, is if you don't have enough training familiarity with yourself or even in general, you you may be quitting before you really hit that threshold, just because if you've never felt what these things feel like, it's going to suck, it's going to be hard, and it's going to make you like, okay, I'm done, like I'll rest and do another set. So having the professional insight to say, like, like based upon the way you're moving, I think you probably got at least 3 or 5 left in the tank. Let's get a few more out of you. That way we can maximize your results. We still always train within individual abilities, not what the cookie cutter process says the rep ranges, the weight ranges, and everything has to be. If you guys do have any other follow-up questions on that, feel free, throw them in the comments. I'm more than happy to expand upon it in other episodes. In the meantime, I hope all that was helpful. And just remember, the biggest thing to see success is staying consistently persistent in your pursuit of better health. Have a great week, guys.